guys smell that? Football's back. You can smell it, you can taste it, but you sure as hell can't fake it. And it's another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
As always, brought to you by our friends over at Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union, named by Forbes. The NFL is back. Ravens Chiefs in the book, the first Thursday night football of the season. But of course, it's the Southwest Bias, so we don't care about that anymore. We're focusing on is Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Your Arizona Cardinals travel to the East Coast to take on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And so if I'm talking Cardinals, I got the people's producer, Mr. Hold the Line, a third of PHNX Cardinals, who are going to give you a pregame, a halftime, and a postgame show all on Sunday, all on this channel. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button. It's Damon, Dawg. I am Erik Ruby. We are here to get hype. Damon, football is upon us. Cardinal season's upon us. I'm talking with my hands. I'm so excited. Are you as excited as me?
I am. Football season is the best season. Just when it comes to sports, like that, right when football starts up, basketball is about to start up. That baseball is about to get into the flow of the playoffs. This is sports nirvana, and I can't wait for it. I'm just really excited, and the Cardinals are going to be one of those teams, I think, this year that could be very, very interesting.
So let's talk about how interesting it could be in week 1 if the Cardinals do beat the Buffalo Bills. Now, listen, they're about a touchdown underdogs going on the road against a team that, we'll get into it, has lost a good amount of important pieces, whether it's from trades or whether it's from injury as well. But if I had to ask you, Damon, Sunday night, it's all over. The Arizona Cardinals are 1-0, and they walked away in rather convincing fashion over the Bills. What was the number one thing that had to happen in that game for that to happen?
I'd say first and foremost, I'd say that the offense has to show up, because this team is not built to win defensive football games. I think it's built for its coaching staff, in particular with Nick Rawlis at defensive coordinator and Jonathan Gannon at head coach, to kind of outperform what their talent level is from a defensive standpoint. So, in my opinion, really, I think that just the Cardinals offense is going to have to show up. I'm thinking minimum 25 points, 24 points. I think they probably got to punch in the end zone probably about 4 times in the football game, or at least get 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals, something like that, to put them in that high 20s range if they want to win this game, because I think we know Josh Allen's going to put points on the board.
Yeah, I think you can't go into this game, especially game 1 of the season, and expecting this Cardinals defense to maybe overperform. Now, as the season goes along with, like you mentioned, Gannon and Rawlis getting their fingers all over this defense and getting their scheme and getting players more comfortable, I would assume that defense would get better. Now, there is a chance that with these types of coaches, and they can get this talent to maybe overperform in week 1 because, A, there's not a ton of tape. Right, you're not going to have a defense that's, this was the #1 defense in the NFL last year with a bunch of returners, and we know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
This is still a young team with a lot kind of to prove and to grow.
About half new starters, I believe.
Yeah, and no matter what, in any game this season, whether the defense can step up or not is going to be a difference maker. However, this team will only go as far as this offense goes. This is an offensive juggernaut if everything is clicking correctly. Of course, at the heart of that, you have to talk about Kyler Murray. We've talked about Kyler Murray this entire offseason. We've done multiple Southwest biases. Of course, you guys on PHNX Cardinals have talked about Kyler Murray as well. What are you looking for out of him? Once or twice. Let's talk some stats, right?
Yeah.
Stat-wise, what are you looking for out of Kyler Murray in week 1 of what could be a revenge tour?
Yeah, I think the way I look at Kyler is I'm never going to look at his passing stats and say that's the full picture with him, right? So I'm going to look at all-purpose yards, all his cumulative yards, and I'm going to say he's got to have 250 plus minimum. I think 300 would really be the barometer of like a good game, but I think the Cardinals, there's a world where they could win with 250. Anything less than that, I don't think they're giving themselves anything of a shot. Couple touchdowns. I think you'd like to see maybe 1 on the ground just to show that he kind of has that in his bag. He ran a little bit less last season when he came back, understandably so, coming back from an ACL tear and coming back about halfway through the season. But I think you'd like to see him move his legs a little bit. He looks really good when you see him like out at training camp or in preseason, kind of training, what's the
scrimmages,
joint practices, against the Colts and whatnot. So I think, he looks big, he looks in shape. He looks, we saw his YouTube channel that he's announced that he's dropping earlier today. Seems like he's going to be, or he's been working really hard this offseason. So, yeah, I'd like to see maybe, I don't know, I'd say a good game, multiple touchdowns, 300 yards combined between his passing and his rushing.
And I think that's something that you can look at and say that's actually a realistic expectation of Kyler Murray. And I would probably assume that's what the team and that's what Kyler Murray expects out of Kyler Murray. And of course, the physical aspects of it and the weapons around him, which we'll get into some of the weapons in just a second. But I think something that is going to show in week one, and pardon my bias, but you could even see it from a college level, like in ASU, is this culture shift and this kind of this bought-inness. I don't think that that's actually a phrase, but I'm going to coin that now. Yeah, the buy-in. There you go. Thank you. That's why we have Damon Dawg on here, people's producer. Come on now. There is a massive, massive, massive difference when it comes to actually playing the sport of football and enjoying your situation and really wanting to fight for the people alongside you. And I'm not saying Kyler didn't want to do that before, but you can tell that there is just a different infrastructure around him. And we've used that phrase so many times. And as overblown as it might be in some cases, or sometimes it doesn't always translate to on-the-field success, I think when you talk about somebody that's as talented as Kyler Murray is, having that extra step of, hey, I feel so connected and gelled with this team, and I believe in the game plan, and I believe in the coaches, that unlocks it to the next level. But one thing that we're hoping that would make Kyler Murray's life a lot easier and will make watching these games a lot more fun is the addition of number 4 overall pick Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that in order for them to beat the Bills, it doesn't have to all go through MHJ, but he needs to start his rookie campaign off with a massive statement. Now, I don't know if 100 yards is too much to ask. I don't want to put the expectations too high, but if you had to say over, under 85 yards receiving, 85 and a half yards receiving for Marvin Harrison Jr. Game one. Are you smashing the over?
That's a pretty good line because, if you listen to our PHNX Cardinals show we did 2 days ago, Johnny specifically asked me, first put me on the spot and said, give me a stat prediction for Marvin. And I said 6 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown.
I'll take
85 and a half is pretty darn close to what
that's
what
a successful debut, right?
I think it's going to be really close to that. And I think, the Bills have good cornerbacks. I looked at, I was doing some research on the Bills, and Christian Benford is a good player. Rasul Douglas, who Cardinals fans are familiar with.
Gosh.
He's become a really, really good NFL football player. The Packers traded him to the Bills, and for the last half of last season, he was putting up, Pro Bowl kind of not statistical because it's cornerback, but people that were watching the tape and studying his film were saying that he became one of the star corners in the NFL over the back half of last year, which is a far cry of what Cardinals fans remember him as. But, and then they have Teron Johnson, who's potentially the best slot corner in football. So, they have 3 pretty good cornerbacks. It's going to be a tough test for Marvin in his first game, first professional action. But I think he's so good that I think he's going to get his no matter what. But in my opinion, Erik, the person that I think wins you or loses you this football game, and he doesn't, I don't know that he's going to make mistakes that lose you the football game, but I really think that Trey McBride is going to be the catalyst for if the Cardinals can cover the spread, come out of here with an upset W in Buffalo. I hate to be that guy, but the Bills are starting Damar Hamlin at safety. He's not a good football player. They lost Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer from their last season. Those have been staples of their defensive back unit for the last 5 or so years. 2 all-pro caliber players over their last 5 seasons or so. And then you have some rookies coming in as well, to like Cole Bishop to back up Damar Hamlin. I think they have an okay safety situation. Maybe not the worst in the league, but I think that Trey McBride as an elite level tight end, that should be the matchup that he's able to exploit. And I think if Kyler Murray targets him a lot, the Cardinals could be pretty successful and hopefully propel them to a win.
I wouldn't be shocked if Trey McBride is the one who has the most targets at the end of game one. I think by the end of the season, you're going to look at MHJ. It's probably that guy, but it's going to be some pretty good competition. You can also say Michael Wilson's going to get a good share of targets as well, and Greg Dortch is going to get the touches that he deserves, which is more and more every single year. But that might play into Marvin Harrison's line, right? He might be super efficient, make some great grabs, but end up with 70, 85 yards, hopefully a touchdown, because that love gets spread everywhere. And I think a name that in the whole offseason, I'm not saying you guys specifically, but just overall when it comes to the Cardinals, is very, very under-discussed and is somebody that I believe might be the biggest key to winning this game on offense is James Conner. Because James Conner is your steady hand, right? James Conner is your do-it-all back. He can catch, he can run, he's tough, he's going to run through somebody, he can get around somebody. And as much as I want to see Kyler use his legs, I don't want to see him use it to the degree that he was using it in the Cliff Kingsbury era. And obviously that wasn't happening last season, but I think last season was a mix of scheme and, of course, being comfortable out there returning from a rather serious lower body injury, right? But I want to be able to see James Conner make his impact early and often, because that in its own right is going to open up, A, Kyler moving around and running, but B, your trio of receiving weapons in Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., and of course, Michael Wilson. Throw Greg Dortch in there as well. And if we're looking at the Bills defense, you mentioned their secondary situation and their DBs, but if also linebacker Matt Milano is out with a torn bicep. He is one of, according to the top 100 that the players vote on, he is a top 70 player, number 69. Nice. Just have to say it, I guess. Had to. Even though it gets a little old. You still have to. He's one of the best players in the NFL. Right. And that's somebody that losing them on Buffalo's side will allow Kyler Murray to be back in the pocket, presumably. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed. A little bit more time to deliver the ball, a little bit more time to make your reads and deliver it. On Buffalo's side, we talk about the defense, but when you move over to the offense, obviously the offense is going to be hard to stop with this Cardinals personnel on defense, despite how high we are on their coaching. Is there a world where you can contain relatively Josh Allen and the Bills offense?
I think that world is a world where he's not getting help from the other players on his team, because I think Josh Allen he's so good. He's so talented. He's a top 3 to 4 quarterback in the league. I think almost everybody would say that's a consensus opinion. And I think, he's the type of guy where he's going to do his job. He's very turnover prone. And I think that's a place where the Cardinals defense actually could take a big step this year. If you look at the points they gave up per game last season, it wasn't good, but it also wasn't to a level that was so bad that they were out of football games. They didn't create like any turnovers last season. If they can get to Josh Allen and force those turnovers, that's going to go a long way in helping them win this football game in week 1. But like I was going back to, they lost a lot of talent, especially from a skill player standpoint. They still have James Cook at running back. Dalton Kincaid is going to be expected to make a massive jump in his second season because they frankly need him to.
He's going to probably be Josh Allen's number 1 target.
He should be Josh Allen's number 1 target, because outside of him, you're looking at Khalil Shakur, Curtis Samuel, and Keon Coleman. And that's one of the worst receiving corps in the entire NFL on paper. I mean, you never want to throw out those types of words before a season starts.
It's preseason, so you can only go off of what you've seen.
Yeah.
And with that group, you have not a lot to go off of.
No, you're going off of a gadget player in Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakur, who was a complete nobody going into last season. It was like a practice squad caliber player going into last year. And then Keon Coleman, who, I mean, you're hoping that he can carry the load as a rookie that, really kind of faltered down the stretch of last college football season. He was considered to be in the same class as Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze for so long, until it came around draft season and everybody started watching his tape and looking at his combine numbers, and they were like, he's not as good as those players. There's a wide gap between those players and him. So, I think that's where you're really going to have to take advantage of the Bills. They're still going to have a good O-line. They still have a good running back, and they have Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Can you exploit their skill position players who are either inexperienced or just not, that level, the good caliber NFL football players? And that's what's going to have to happen in week 1.
Well, I think if you look at this Cardinals defense, they have this overall perception of the weaker unit, but you also have 2 of the better players in the team in Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson out there in your secondary. And like you mentioned,
helps with Kincaid.
It helps with Kincaid. That helps with that entire receiving core that leaves a lot to be desired. I would put my money on Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson getting the best of that receiving core, right? Of course, it's the pass rush where you come in and you start to have questions, especially with the lack of actual bodies and talent that you have have to just throw at the quarterback. And you have one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL and the NFL's leader in touchdowns by 23 since 2020. I mean, he's an absolute weapon on the field, whether you're running or whether you're throwing. And so as much as I would love to say, oh, we'll take away the receivers, let Josh Allen run, to be honest with you, at this point, that might just be a better option for them, right? Just to get Josh Allen on for the Bills to move around and set that up as well. Plus, you have James Cook. I'm a little bit worried about the ground game when it comes to Buffalo, especially beginning of the season. I don't expect them to target these receivers a ton, especially going up against a Budda Baker and a Jalen Thompson. And we're going to talk more about what a win would mean for the Cardinals if they're able to pull this off, because like we mentioned, they are underdogs in this game. It's not like they're going in favored, but of course, we got to remind you guys that this episode of Southwest Bias, as always, is brought to you by Desert Financial Credit Union. And for just about 85 years, DFCU has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicated to creating exceptional experiences, giving back to the community, and that community does include so many people here at PHNX, including myself, who is a third-generation member of Desert Financial Credit Union back when their name was different. I'm telling you, OG, been there. Only place that I've been keeping my money. But one thing that I didn't get when I first opened up my free checking account with Desert Financial Credit Union, that all of you guys get, if you haven't done that and you're planning on doing it now, is $200. And you can get that in your checking account online, $200 in bonuses when you open up a free one. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. And I mentioned this on the last Southwest Bias we did that you were also a part of, Mr. Damon Dawg, talking about the Diamondbacks and saying, oh, how nice would it be if you could see what a reliever would do before you actually put them in? And how nice would it be if you could see how Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to perform before he actually went out and performed. And that's what our friends over at Empire Today can do for you and for your flooring, because they have a virtual floor visualizer, by far and away the coolest thing that they do, where you can take a picture, hold up your phone, and see how your floors are going to look in your house, in your condo, in your apartment, whatever you own, whatever you're trying to renovate. The last thing you want to do is make a massive decision like flooring and it just doesn't look the way that you imagined it to, because Empire is going to be there for you through the whole process, right? They're going to make it quick. They're going to make it easy. They're going to make it convenient. Now, they won't promise you the lowest prices, because anybody that does is putting flooring in your home that they would not put in theirs. And this is not something that you want to skimp out on. This is not just, oh, I'll make a decision, whatever, who cares, I'm going to get some new flooring. No, that's a massive decision. It means everything. Yeah, it means everything, and they're here to make everything so much easier for you. And you can schedule a free in-home estimate today. Plus, all listeners can receive a $350 off discount. It's a lot of cheese when they use the promo code PHNX. Restrictions do apply. See EmpireToday.com/PHNX for details.
Here's an idea, Erik.
Yeah.
You start up your Desert Financial Credit Union account. You collect your free $200. Then you go to Empire Today. You get $350 off.
I like where your head's at.
You toss that $200 in there, and all of a sudden, you got $550 off your new flooring. I mean, that's a massive
You get
discount.
some nice flooring. If you're debating whether or not to go up to maybe that more expensive level, do that. Your flooring lasts you for longer. Of course, they're going to install it real nice.
Brother, I'm looking at their installed flooring that they gave us right here. I mean, this is nice hardwood.
And we move this studio around a lot. Yeah. Right. So, and it's holding up.
The
real
flooring
nice.
looks exactly the same every day.
Absolutely beautiful. Okay. Nothing will be the same if the Cardinals beat the Bills. Is that an overreaction? Is that an overstatement?
No, I think that's not dramatic enough.
I think if the Cardinals go out and not only beat the Bills in week 1, but actually have a borderline dominant performance, right? They come out there and they leave no questions. Everything happens the way that Cardinals fans dream. Kyler Murray has an incredible game. MHJ has 100 yards plus a touchdown. Michael Wilson, Trey McBride do their damage as well. James Conner, and the defense overperforms. It's not out of the question that they win this game, but win this game convincingly. And if that happens, let's get ahead of ourselves, Damon Dawg. Is the NFL on notice to what's happening here in Arizona?
Yeah, I think because the Bills are thought of so highly, because the Bills are thought of what they are, and that's a team that makes the playoffs consistently, a team that has been in a couple NFC champion or AFC championship games recently. So yeah, I mean, the expectation is that the Bills are going to roll the Cardinals over in Buffalo week 1. I believe NFL Network did their predictions, and only Daniel Jeremiah said that he is a hero. Thank you for your service, Daniel. He was the only one that said that the Cardinals were going to win the football game. Everybody else, Team Bills. So yeah, I think, that's going to be a massive shock to people. It would be maybe the story of the week, depending on how other things go throughout how other games go. But yeah, that would be a massive shock. And I think the people would automatically, I mean, I think a lot of the takes, and it'll bother Cardinals fans, a lot of the takes would be, are the Bills finished? That would be the first inclination that the media is going to have. They're going to start talking about, is it the Jets division, because the media loves the Jets. They'll probably throw in the Dolphins there a little bit, but it'll be like, is the Bills' reign of the AFC East that they've had for the last 3 to 5 years, is it over? But I also think that there will be other conversations sparked, like, can the Cardinals sustain this? Is Kyler Murray back to what he was being 2-3 seasons ago? And are they going to be a legitimate contender for a wild card?
Yeah, I think both of those things are going to live. And of course, I mean, we work in media, and the reason why this show is called Southwest Bias is because there is a massive bias seemingly for all these East Coast teams. And when a team like the Cardinals do win, it does kind of turn towards, oh, well, what did the other team do wrong? And I think that's something that's just going to be expected. And until the Cardinals do it consistently, it's not going to become a storyline, except for the smartest of the smart as far as NFL analysts and experts go. However, when it comes to internally, a massive win over the Bills can spark something for this team, because
for sure
they already have, I wouldn't say momentum, but they have this feeling around themselves in the locker rooms that things are changing, the tides are turning. And that can only go so far until you go on the field and you actually show it. And if they go on the field, show it against one of the best teams, presumably in the AFC, against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they're able to hold up their defense and their offense is just absolutely spectacular, then you're going up against a Rams team in your home debut with so much momentum, so much fan support and internal support and confidence on your side. It really could change a lot for just how this team plays. And momentum, I know that there's like this whole debate that momentum is not a thing in sports. It absolutely is a thing in sports. Absolutely is a thing, and especially from game to game, because you take on the Rams at home, and then you have more home games, 3 home games in a row. Rams, Lions, Commanders, right? If you beat the Rams, you're 2-0 in convincing fashion. That Lions game on September 22nd is going to be massive, and that is when a lot of NFL talking heads and experts will start turning their attention towards the Cardinals and say, hey, if they beat the Lions, 3-0. I mean, that of course is getting way ahead of ourselves, but that type of momentum could carry over, and it all starts with this Sunday.
It absolutely does. I mean, you look at the schedule, and after the bye week in week 11, they have at Seattle, at Minnesota, versus Seattle, versus New England, at Carolina, at LA, versus San Francisco, in a game where the Niners could be resting a lot of players. So you're ending out the season with a good 7-week stretch there against, pretty lackluster opponents, other than at Rams and potentially Niners, depending on if they need that game or not. The early part of the season is really what's going to make or break this year for this team. So you have at Buffalo versus LA versus Detroit versus Washington. If you can manage to start a 3-1 stretch there with 4 games, I think this is a playoff team. I genuinely think that is make or break for this team. I mean, I'm not going to say it's over if, they're losing to very capable, legitimate opponents in the Bills and the Lions and the Rams. Like, if they were 1-3, that wouldn't shock anybody, I don't think. 0-4 might be a little bit shocking. But if 1-3, I think would be the consensus opinion from many of the people in the league. But in reality is that a lot of Commanders fans are probably looking at the schedule and saying, that's a W for us.
I think a lot of fans are looking like that, and that's just not the case anymore. It's just not.
I agree with you, but I think that teams look at their schedule and they think the Cardinals are a team that they're going to get a W against. That's going to be an opinion on almost everybody's schedule. I think this early portion of the season is going to go so far into how the later part of the season will go, because it's unrealistic to expect them to go like 7-0 in those final 7 games.
Oh no,
but if they can rail off 5-2, easily.
It's definitely possible. And like you said, when this schedule first came out, a lot of people were predicting a terrible start for the Cardinals and a strong end. as well. Not only does that play into the schedule, but it's just this group of players coming together,
Young
especially
players.
on defense, right? Young players growing and whatnot. And listen, this is an exciting team, whether there's a week 1 win or there's not a week 1 win. Everybody is getting behind this team. There's so much momentum around the young players, especially Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. And of course, leading that charge all the way is Kyler Murray. And leading the charge when it comes to covering this team and starting a movement, of course, is PHNX Cardinals. You can catch them later today if you're tuning into this right when it drops at 4:30 for their final show before Sunday. Pre-game, halftime, post-game. Damon, Dawg, Johnny Venerable, Bo Brock, all here for you throughout the entire season right here on PHNX Sports. So you make sure right now, I'm looking at you. I know you have not hit the subscribe button yet. Not you. I know those of you have. You know I'm not talking to you, right? You know who I'm talking to, though, right now. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. You made it this far into the video, you might as well do it, and you might as well be along for the ride, because if they shock the Bills, the vibes will be high on Sunday. Make sure you follow at PHNX_Cardinals on social media to follow along the way. You can follow Damon on Twitter at Damon Dawg. That's DAWG. Holding the line as always. You can follow myself at ERIKRUBY. If you're a football freak, you love college football, especially ASU, we will be having a post game on Saturday night after ASU takes on Mississippi State. And of course, we're live on at PHNX_Sun Devils 5 days a week on this very channel. We'll be back next week, maybe talking Cards, Suns, Diamondbacks, ASU.
Who knows?
Who knows? That's the beauty of Southwest Bias, and we'll be back next week either way.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.